Okay, my dowel pieces are all glued. I'm going to let those dry for a little bit. Next step is to, why did I put that cap on? Because next step is to cut out the fin pieces. Now before I cut the fins from the wood, I like to take a sanding block, or I have this sanding tee and some sandpaper. This is a 220 grit, and just lightly sand while they're still in, so they're nice and smooth on both sides. Okay. Now, just like with the centering rings, these are laser cut out of balsa wood, and they leave the little notches to hold them in place. Sometimes these pop out real easily. I like to use the knife to cut through the notches. There, there, there. So I'll get the rest of these cut out, and I'll be back with you in just a moment. Why do I have two sheets of fins? Okay, well, I guess I wasn't paying attention earlier. I have enough balsa for 6 fins. I only need 3. I don't know if they sent an extra by mistake, or maybe if I make a mistake, I'll have a spare. I'm not going to cut these out yet. I'll only do these if I need them. Okay, so once you have them cut out, something that makes it really easy to do for later finishing is to take all of these similar parts and stack them up. And you see where those notches were holding them? They leave little marks. And we can stand them all up. Put your sandpaper flat on your table and just sand it smooth. Top is already smooth. It didn't have any bumps. That's good for that one. It's important to do these, to do all the similar pieces together so they all have the same shape. There. This, the little one, will be the trickiest. If you want to skip it, I would not blame you one bit. But it is quite tricky holding on to such small pieces. And you don't need much sanding at all. Remember, this is balsa wood. It's very soft. It sands really well. Just a few passes and it's smooth. Okay. So next, I'll take my paper, and it shows you how the parts are assembled. So I like to lay them out Try to get any loose sawdust off. Lay out the main fins and the front pieces, and then the back pieces. Now on the back pieces, they are more or less, they look like identical, they're little right, they look they're little right triangles. And something you want to make sure you're doing when you have these lined up is to have a straight edge nearby, because you want these edges down here to be completely flat when they are glued. So, easiest one to have is your ruler. So before you glue them, line up these pieces. Now the big main fin plus the front spar, those line up pretty evenly already. And if it looks like your back end doesn't go on right, flip it around. See if that makes a difference. And if it still doesn't go, it looks like to me in the picture, and from what I'm looking at, I could measure this, I suppose. One side is a little longer than the other one, and the long side butts up against the main fin. So if it looks like that is not lining up quite as evenly as you would like, just take a little bit of sandpaper and a little bit at a time. Just sand that flat until it's even. It's very important that this fin lies flat against the body tube. The little guy, it's not super vital because this isn't a very structural part of it. The main stability will be the main fin, of course, but you don't want any part of the fins popping off at any point. There, that looks good. So I'm going to even up the rest of these, and I will be right back. Okay, all right. The rest of these look really good. So we will take a little bit of glue. There. And squish them together. Same with this. Squish them together. And then get your straight edge up. And get that lined up, and then wipe off the excess glue. Make sure these are lying perfectly flat. You don't want your fin to go like this and then suddenly curve. Some kits do that intentionally, yes. For the most part, you want the fin pieces to all be in perfect alignment. The ones that curve, they add a curve specifically for that kit for stability purposes. This kit is designed with perfectly straight fins in mind. So we're trying not to disturb that one while I glue this one. So I'll get the rest of these glued and be back with you in a little bit. Okay, those fins are all glued in place. Since the next step would be gluing the dowel rods to the top, I'm going to instead let these dry completely and move on to installing the motor mount. In the meantime, I will carefully move this sheet of waxed paper off to the side so that I don't disturb those fins. And if you do let them dry somewhere, make sure you get it to a position where it's, again, completely flat. I need to make sure that this is all the way off my cutting mat or if it's still on the cutting mat. But either way, it's resting on a flat surface, not anything with a lip to it. Okay, now by this point our motor mount tube is dry. If you do this too soon and the glue is still too wet, actually this is still fairly wet, I'm going to let this dry all the way and I'll come back and pick up this build at a later time, because it's a cold day. This is still not drying quite as fast as I'd like, and I don't want to do this. If you glue this into your body tube too soon and the glue's not set, your centering rings will become misaligned, and that can be disastrous when you're trying to fly a rocket. The whole idea is for this to be perfectly in line with the center line of the body tube, and then the thrust will push it forward. So I'm going to let that set. I'm going to come back, do a little bit of cleanup here. You don't need to see all that, but I'm going to let this dry for probably a day like today, might be an hour or so. By then the fins should also be dry, and then I can assemble the rest of this, or some more of this anyway. Okay.